with Chad from the Chamber. Today we have Carla Guest, Senior Communication Specialist with Siemens, and she's going to be presenting how to present for success. Concrete tips, tricks you can use in your next presentation. Probably not holding the sheet of paper here. So at any rate, I'm not going to ramble on. You didn't come to see me. Here's Carla.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to, I unplugged my power here. I'm just going to plug that back in so we don't lose power. Okay, so thank you all for coming, for taking your lunchtime to be here. I'd like to start by asking you to close your eyes and just listen to what I have to say. I'm going to tell you a story. So just imagine, in the darkness of the night, when the last thing she wanted was to be alone, Jamie Kinsit survived the solitude the only way she knew how, by hitting the kitchen. She would cook up a pot of mac and cheese, reheat pizza, or layer gooey butter through popcorn and coat the top with flavored sprinkles. Then came the cheese, the handfuls of fish-shaped crackers, the potato chips, and anything else she could find in her cupboards. It was a flood of food to feed a sad soul. Okay, so open your eyes. So that's what I like to call an imagined story. It paints pictures, it evokes emotions, it creates a reaction. And that's what good communication does. It helps you make that emotional connection with your audience, with the people you're communicating to, whether it's a large meeting, a sales call, a presentation. So good communication, knowing your goal, knowing your audience, and making connections is what I'd like to talk about today. So communication is a skill. Anyone can learn it. It's like riding a bike, learning to swim. There was a time when we all maybe climbed on a bicycle and maybe our dad or our mom kind of held on to the back of the bike, running behind us as we went down the road. So we've all experienced that, and now, hopefully, maybe you can all hop on a bike and go on all the great bike trails here in Peterborough. But that was a skill that we learned, and communications is no different. I don't know if you have teenagers in your house who listen to the rapper Macklemore. I really like him. Anyway, he has a line that, all the great painters were bad at first, because they all started somewhere. And as Ralph Waldo Emerson put it, all the great speakers were bad at first. So in the information age, we send and receive huge amounts of information and messages every day, whether it's an email, a voice call, face-to-face communication, a text, all of this information. But if we want people to understand the information, we need to get to the emotion behind it. So at Siemens, we make level instruments. What does that mean? Well, it's an instrument that goes on top of a tank. It measures the level of how much stuff is in the tank. It's not really interesting. But if I were to go on a sales call out to, say, St. Mary's Cement, you can see their plant on the 115. If you go up their silos, it's a 100-foot silo, and they have to send an operator up there to check the level of that silo. It's very dangerous, it's very windy, could be snowing, could be raining, could be whatever. So I would say to that, on that sales call, imagine never having to send an operator up on top of a 100-foot silo again. Imagine always knowing how much stock you have in your tanks. Imagine knowing that from the comfort of your control room. That's the emotion behind the data that our instruments are safe and reliable and accurate, but the fact that you never have to put a worker in harm's way again, that's the emotion. So that's what we want to get to with our presentations and with our communication. So as I said, the focus of today's presentation is how to communicate effectively. And I want to help you make presentations that are more engaging, memorable, and retellable. So, you go into work in the morning and everybody's kind of gathered around the water cooler and they're talking about what they saw on TV last night or a conversation they heard on the radio. That's retellable. It resonated with them. So we need to get a story like that will resonate with our audience so that they not only remember it, but they will retell it. Because when you retell it, it cements in your brain and you will not forget that information. That information will stay with them. So we want to get to the value and the meaning behind the data. And today I'm going to talk about what makes a good story, how to put your audience first, how to create energy and excitement, and how to demand feedback. And I specifically say demand feedback. I don't say ask for feedback. Without feedback, we can't improve. If we don't know where we are or how we're doing, how can we ever get better? And as I said, it's a skill. We can learn it. We can practice it. We can get better. So I think we have about 18 people maybe here in the audience today. We've probably got, like, I would say at least 200 years of communication experience. So I'd like to take a moment and just do a really quick round table to find out who you are, what your organization is that you're here with. And then I have a question for you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you like public speaking? So 1 being, I can't stand it, I would rather do anything other than public speaking, and 10 being, I love it, it's my favorite thing in the world to do. So I'm going to start. I'm Carla Guest, as we said in the introduction. I work with Siemens. I've been doing presentations for over 25 years, but I put myself probably at about a 7 or an 8, because I think we always have room to improve. So maybe we'll start with you, Judith, and we'll just do a quick once around the room.
Okay, I'm Judith Carson. My company is Art of Redesign. It's a home staging and organization company, and I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, probably a 2 for general, but if it's a subject I'm passionate about, I put myself at a 6.
Great, thank you. Laurie?
My name is Laurie Maloney. I work at Marlin Travel. I'm a travel advisor. And I would put myself at an 8. I like it.
Laurie works in communications. Laurie is a great communicator.
I get energy from it.
Tammy?
Hi, I'm Tammy from Bright Basics. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say about a 3.5. Don't love it, but don't hate it. Have to do it every day, so
That's good. So yeah, get better, get more comfortable. Wanda?
I'm working out of the basics, and I said probably at 5.
5, okay, that's good. Kelly?
Hi, Kelly Murphy from DM Wells, and first I would say that generally a 2, but if it's something I'm passionate about, I would say probably about a 6 or so.
Great. Hi.
Hi, I'm Debbie Kay. I'm also from DM Wells, engineering firm in town. I'm also the chair of the Dragon Boat Festival, so I'm wearing kind of 2 hats. I would say I'm pretty comfortable, although it's definitely more if I'm passionate about something, maybe a little less if I'm nervous.
Okay.
Nervous about a cold call.
Yes. Yeah,
One-on-one.
nerves are good. Somebody who tells me they're not nervous presenting in public, I don't really believe them, because I think nerves force you to be better because it makes you care about the results. So that's all good. Sarah?
Sarah Crane from Studio Light, graphic designer. I'm probably like 3 or 4. I'm nervous and not confident talking in front of big groups, but small groups. I feel pretty confident. Yeah.
Well,
A
welcome.
little nervous. Thanks.
I'm Norma Mickey. I'm the owner of Studio Light, graphic and web design. I'd say with a small group, I'm probably a 6, maybe. A big group, a 1. Definitely.
It's just a lot of small groups put together. Aaron?
Aaron Clark from Independent Reach Software. I'm about a 3, I'd say.
Okay, thanks for coming.
Hi, I'm Peter Thomas from WSI Business Transformations, and our forte is digital marketing, leveraging the power of the internet to grow your business. And in terms of public speaking and so forth, I've been doing it a long time, but to your point, I still get nervous. So depending on the topic, and you mentioned about passion and so forth, 7 all the way up to a 10, depending on how passionate I am about it.
Great, thanks for coming.
My name is Neil. I'm with Employment Planning Council in Peterborough. Similar like some of you others said, when I'm passionate about a subject, I'm about a 7. But if it's a cold call or something else, I'll be about a 4 or 5.
My name is Emily Basiliadis, and I'm a community fundraising specialist at the Canadian Cancer Society here in town. And I do a lot with the media and a lot of presentations on an 8.
Great. Hi, Kim.
Hi, I'm Kim Cole, and I work at Community Living in Peterborough, and I help people with intellectual delays find employment and start small businesses. So I'm up constantly communicating with people, so I would say about a 7 or an 8.
Great. And I bet you have a really great understanding of your audience needs. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Good. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Kathy Harris, and I'm a business growth specialist. I do a lot of webinars, so I don't get to see people's faces, and that's a different way of communicating. I have good days and I have bad days.
As we all do.
So I would say generally probably a 7.
Okay.
But if I'm doing it for a very specific audience versus a broader base, maybe a 9.
Great. Jane?
I'm Jane Queen, and I'm with the Summit Terrace in the Luxury Seniors Apartment in Peterborough. And that's a really hard question, because if I'm talking to just people in general, I'm okay. If I had to stand up and give a presentation, I'd say 4 or 5.
Okay. Dave?
Dave McDougall. I'm currently unemployed, so not with an organization. As far as giving presentations or speeches, I'd say I'm an 8 or a 9. It's the small groups that personally I have.
No, you're the opposite.
I'm the opposite of
That's
a lot of
interesting. Okay, and we'll move to the back here.
I'm Melinda Masters.
Sorry, was it Linda?
Melinda.
Melinda, okay, thank you.
With Melinda's Custom Sewing. And I would say that on a personal level, like a 1 or 2, I'm very shy. If I have time to present something, then maybe a 5.
Okay, thank you. Hi.
Hi, I'm Sam Shukla. I'm with Investor School. I have never done public speaking, to be honest, so I would say 0.
But I bet you speak to your family and friends.
Family and friends I can, but not like this.
Okay.
The last time that I did, I was probably in grade 5.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming out to learn something then. That's great. Hi.
Hi, I'm Nina. I work at Peterborough Economic Development.
Okay.
I would say a presentation in French, 8. English, I would say 4.
Yes. I do this presentation for the Siemens sales staff from around the world, and we always get that. If you're presenting in your native language, obviously it's easier than a second or third language. So thank you very much. That's great input. I think you've all got some great ideas that we can share at the end of the presentation. I'd like to show you a little video about public speaking.
I'm somewhat high-risk things, the scuba, I've gone hang gliding, I've gone skydiving. I like a little bit of risk. I don't know, maybe that's why I do this. I saw a thing, actually, a study that said speaking in front of a crowd is considered the #1 fear of the average person. I found that amazing. Number 2 was death. Death is number 2. This means to the average person, if you have to be at a funeral, you would rather be in the casket than doing the eulogy.
So just a little bit of light relief there. I'm definitely of the Seinfeld generation. I can remember most of those episodes, but I think it just drives home the point that we might feel uncomfortable, we might feel nervous, but I really want to emphasize that it's a skill we can learn, and with practice we can get better. So with that, let's try a little audience participation. With your left hand, I want you to put it where you think your comfort level is with public speaking, whether you said you were 3, 4, down here maybe 5, 6, kind of where you're at. I'm gonna put myself about here. So, and then with your right hand, I want you to reach it up as high as it possibly will go, as high as it'll go. So this right hand represents your potential as a speaker. Okay, we can put our hands down now. We all have that potential to be great. We all have the potential to be, we can put your hands down now. We all, sorry, I was talking this way, I should be talking this way. We can all be great. We can all be a rock star presenter. We just need that practice. So when you think about why you want to be an effective speaker, or when you saw the notice come out for this session, why did you want to come here? Why do you want to be a more effective speaker? Maybe we'll just get 3 or 4 people if they want to offer their opinions. Why do you want to get better?
Your comfort level?
Yeah, to expand your knowledge, get out of your comfort zone.
I can say the connection, making sure you're remembered when you leave.
Making connections.
Whether it's a big group or a small group.
Yep, you want to be remembered, get your information across. Sometimes when I ask that question, I get answers like, I want a promotion, I want some recognition from my boss, I want to move up in my company, because I usually present to people at Siemens, so they want to move up in their role or their position. But what I always tell them, and Deb has hit the nail on the head there, is you got to get to that emotional reason. Why do you want to be better? Not because I want a promotion or I want the recognition from my boss. I want everyone in the room to leave here feeling like they learned something they can use at 1 o'clock when they leave here. And that's the emotional reaction. That's the imagined story from the beginning. That's what resonates with people. So when you think about why you want to get better, think about that emotional reaction. And Erin highlighted that as well. We want to grow as people, as communicators. So try to get to that emotional level of the communications. So I was saying to Kim, because she was the first one here, that I've been presenting in public for, as I said, 20, 25 years. I started when I was 2, but a little joke. I recently had an opportunity to take some training through Siemens over the last 2 years, and it really opened my eyes to a whole new level of presenting. And the biggest takeaway for me was that it's not about you. So it's not about me standing up here in front of you all, me being nervous, are my knees shaking, is my voice cracking? So if it's not about me, who is it about?
The audience.
It's about the audience, right? It's not about me, it's about you folks. What do you want to get out of the presentation? What can I help you with? How can I help you succeed? So knowing your audience, and I'm sorry it was Kathy, you talked about knowing the level of people that you're presenting to, if it's a large group, a small group, if it's high school students, if it's university people, knowing your audience. So that's what we want to get at. So when you're getting ready for your presentation, oftentimes the first thing we do is like, okay, I got to present tomorrow, it's 4 o'clock, now I'm going to open my computer, I'm going to pull up PowerPoint, and I'm going to start typing stuff in PowerPoint, and I'm going to present it tomorrow. So before you do that, I want you to think about these questions on the screen. Before you even open up your computer, before you turn on PowerPoint, think about what is the audience thinking about before the presentation? How much do they know about the topic already? And I'm just going to stop here and give a little infomercial. I see some of you writing. I have a handout that I will email to everyone if you filled out the sign-in sheet. And everything that I'm talking about is in the handout. So I really, if you want, just feel free to listen and not worry about taking notes, because I really would like you to absorb the information. And if there's anything I haven't covered, you'll have all my contact information, and you can always email me or give me a call. So just take a break and sit back and listen. What's your audience already doing about the issues you're going to discuss? If you're trying to sell them a product, a new software, or some management consulting, what have they done before? What do they know about your business? What do they know about your offering with sales? What do you want them to think after you've presented? So you've done your presentation, you've left the room. Do you want them to think, wow, they've got some ideas that we could really use, or that was really engaging. I'm going to go tell my boss right away about that presentation because it was memorable and it was retellable. And what do you want them to do? What's the action? What's the commitment you want them to take? And this is a great way to overcome nervousness when you're nervous. I think a little bit of nerves are good. They push us to be better. But just keep telling yourself, it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the audience. I don't need to be nervous because it's about you folks. It's not about me. So, any Star Trek fans? Maybe you're Star Trek the original or Star Trek Next Generation. So we got the original Captain Kirk here, and we got a coffee filter. So what could Star Trek and coffee filters possibly have in common? I'm going to paint another picture for you here. So imagine Captain Kirk, he's on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. There's an enemy ship approaching. It's coming in fast. The enemy ship has its shields up. Captain Kirk is on the bridge. He needs to make a decision right now. The enemy ship is coming in. What is he going to do? That ship is coming in and they've got their shields up. What's Captain Kirk going to give the order to Scotty or Leonard Nimoy? He's going to say, put our shields up, right? The enemy ship is coming with the shields up, and Captain Kirk puts his shields up. What's going to happen?
War.
Hopefully not, but nothing's going to get through, right?
Yeah.
Those shields are going to block anything that's coming through. It's the same way in communications. We like to call them filters. The audience, your audience, has a natural filter resting point of about 75%. So their shield is 75% up when you walk into the room. So you've got to constantly work to get their shields down, get their filters down. Because when the shields are up, nothing gets through, right? You want to lower the shields so the message can get through, so that people remember it and that they tell it again. Okay? So have you ever been in a presentation and you walk in and this is on the slide and the presenter's standing here and they're like, well, you can see in 2012 we didn't do very well here, and you know, Aaron, you were responsible for this and it's all red, and Lori, I'm not sure what's going on with the APM, but it's a downward trend and it's not very good, right? Have you ever been in a presentation like that? First off, you can't even read the slide. I pick on IT, but this is just something I grabbed off the internet. So it could be any department, not just IT. You can't read the slide. What happens to the audience's filters when you put that slide up? That's right, Jane, filters go up. What happens when I stand here like this with my back to the audience? Filters go up. If you do nothing else at your next presentation, make sure that your laptop is in front of you and not behind you, so that you're not turning your back to the audience. Because right away their filters go up. And when the filters go up, nothing gets through. So, how can we remove the barriers? How can we get those filters down so that people are listening and paying attention? When we focus on ourselves, we tend to create that barrier or the filter. So we really want to put the focus on our audience. We want to send our energy out to the audience so that the audience feels that energy and is interested in what we have to say. And one of the quickest ways to engage the audience is to stop saying you and start saying we. Like if you're on a sales call, Neil, with a small business, and you come in there and you say, we can offer you XYZ, we can offer you all this stuff, we can give you the best whatever in the world. And right away those filters are going up. Instead, think about what does Neil get when I go and present with him? Neil, you're going to get 3 tips and tricks that you can use at 1 o'clock when you leave here. You're going to get activities that you can use with your audience. It's what he can, you, right? What he can use, not when I go to St. Mary's Cement and say, we've got the best level radar measurement instrument in the world. You get never having to put an operator on top of that tank. You get to sit in your control room and control the level measurement from the comfort of the control room. So think about that the opposite way. What do they get, not what you can offer to them? Okay, so now let's get into those concrete tips and tricks. Right away, we want to create energy and engagement with our audience. And before the meeting even starts, before people even take their seats, what are some of the ways that we can do that? Just shout out.
Name tags.
Name tags, yes.
You introduced yourself and then we introduced ourselves to you.
Yes. Get to know people. Yes. Anything else?
Well, you did the little exercise in that. You got us working as a group together.
Yes, exactly. So you want to smile. You want to make eye contact. You want to learn people's names. When you use somebody's name, like, Tammy, what did you think about that game last night? Right away, what happens to Tammy? Her filter goes down, right? I've used her name. Tammy now knows she's got to pay attention because whatever I'm saying next is going to be relevant to her, right? And by having everyone's names in front of me, I can do that. It lowers the filter. it creates the engagement. Because those filters have a natural pattern, right? We've all been in those meetings. You come in and it starts off great, coffee's flowing and you're excited to be there. And then, 10, 15 minutes in, you start to go down. And then, maybe you hear a statistic or a story that perks you back up again. And then you're back in the trough of that cycle. So the filters go up and down. Our job as a presenter is to keep pushing them down so that the message gets through. And we can do that with eye contact, using names, care about your audience, greet people as they come in. Those are all great ways to create that energy and engagement. Another thing we do is paint pictures and evoke emotions. You remember that story I told at the beginning, the imagine story? That's very powerful. You're creating a picture in somebody's mind. And we actually know through neuroscience that we remember pictures much longer and much deeper in our brain than we remember any long string of sentences. So when you paint that picture in your customer or in your client or in the person you're communicating, when you paint that picture in their mind's eye, they're going to remember that, right? You're going to think about, I don't have to go on top of the silo. Or, I don't need to know all those business percentages because Neil said he's going to make my life easier. That's the benefit, right? So you paint that picture in the mind's eye. So start your presentation with an imagined story. Start by setting the scene. It was a dark and stormy night when the car pulled up to the gas station. What's going to happen, right? The customer called in a panic. The delivery was late. All those kinds of sentences create the scene. Put your audience right into that scene. So again, let's do a little audience participation. I'd like you to pair up with the person next to you, or groups of 2 or 3, whatever you feel most comfortable with. And think about the way you could start your next presentation by setting the scene with an imagined story, with a quote or a statistic. Let's just take 2 minutes. Topic can be anything. Just to think about, how can I set the scene for my next presentation? Maybe you guys can be a group of 3. Let Melinda in there. Kim's going to share her idea.
Because I find employment for people with intellectual delays, I have to catch the employer right at the beginning.
Yes.
So what I do is I go into their store and I find situations or problems and I solve them in my mind. So I would go to the employer or the manager or whatever and say,
I was just looking around your store and I noticed that all your kegs are empty. And how would you feel if you had those filled all the time?
Yeah. Imagine never having to fill a tag
Imagine never
again.
having to worry
Yeah.
about that. Guess what? We can work together and that can happen for us.
That's great. You're solving a problem that they have.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to share their idea?
I was meeting with a new client yesterday, and they haven't come on board yet, but they fill out a credit check, so they've started the process. And I just dropped in to meet with them. And I'm looking at this now, thinking I could have gone in with stories of current happy grant customers explaining what they had to look forward to.
Yep.
Instead, it's more of a tactical question and answer discussion on the process of the credit check and ordering in the future. But I didn't frame it up into a happy customer service story and referencing other clients in the neighborhood.
And we can get to that, right? Because the details are important. I'm not saying that they're not, but you want that hook at the beginning to, imagine having all your ordering online and never having to look through a catalog again. That kind of thing. Anyone else? You guys were having a good discussion over here. No? No? You can also talk about, like for us, our products, they're industrial products and they're not sexy, they're not interesting, but when you're talking to a customer, we say, the Citroen's LUT 400 is no bigger than a loaf of bread, right? Because most people know how big a loaf of bread is. And if I'm gonna have to put the instrument into my factory, I kind of want to know how big it is, right? Is it the size of the table or is it? So a loaf of bread is something that people can connect with. It could be a question. Tell me, what's your biggest challenge with office supplies? And then frame it, I've got the answer for you. Or for business consulting, what's your biggest pain point? How can I help you with that? It could be a statistic or a quote. Anything you can use to get the person into your conversation right away, lower their filters, it's memorable, it's retellable, people will think about that. You can introduce a character, you want to give some characteristics of the character, so it's not just the man walked in, but, the shaggy man in the blue coat, in the sticky rain boots walked into the store, right? So you get that, paint that picture in the mind's eye of your client or your customer or the person you're talking to. So, has anyone ever heard of mirror neurons? Any scientists or science buffs? Mirror neurons? So, have you ever been sitting next to somebody who yawned? And what do? You yawn. That's mirror neurons. You walk into a party and everybody's smiling and laughing and joking. And you're like, wow, this is a great place, it's a great party. This is a place I want to be. So, mirror neurons are a great concept to understand when it comes to communication, because they cause us to mirror the emotions that we see around us. And it happens on a subconscious level. So I'm a hockey mom, and so I like to use the hockey analogies, but these are my kids. They play hockey here in Peterborough. So my son Connor is a forward. So I'm at the hockey rink, and he's skating down the ice, and he's got the puck, and I'm in the stands, and what am I doing? I'm slowly leaning in, right? Because I want him to go down the ice, and I want that puck to go in the net. Or my other son, Owen, he's a defenseman, and I'm in the seat, and I'm doing this because I don't want the other hockey players to get by him. Or if you're a soccer fan, and you see that soccer ball sailing towards the net, and you're reaching. Or bowling. Bowling is a great one, because you bowl, and you're like this, willing the ball to go down into the pins, right? So that's mirror neurons. So what does that have to do with presenting? So every emotion that you want your audience to feel, or the impression that you want them to get, where do those emotions start? If I want you all to leave here energized and excited and engaged, who has to be energized and excited and engaged? The speaker. I do, that's right. If I'm here presenting my IT roadmap and oh my gosh, you won't believe the day I've had, it's terrible, I gotta do all these things, and right away the energy in the room goes down, your filters go up, and the message isn't getting through, right? So if you want your audience to be interested, and engaged, even excited about what it is you're presenting or whatever it is you're talking about, then you need to go there first. You need to use strong language, paint pictures, tell stories, and evoke emotions, because people will remember that. So I've talked about presenting and engaging your audience. So a concrete tip that we can use to lower filters and engage the audience are body polls. Has anyone ever heard of a body poll? So a body poll is simple. You're just getting data, getting information from the audience using their body. So it could be, like to use a fist of 5. So if I were to ask you right now to use your hand, and with 5 fingers you would say, I've definitely learned something I can use today already. And no fingers means I'm still waiting for that big pitch, Carla, you gotta sell it to me. So let's just everyone use one hand and show me with a fist of 5. Are you feeling 5? Are you 4? Are you 3? How are we doing? We've got 3s, we've got a couple 5s. Okay, so that's good. So I know I've got some work to do. Some people are looking for more information. So what that does is it gets everybody involved. It lowers your filters, so you're listening to what I have to say. But it also gives me, the presenter, data about what it is you're interested in. And I can use that data to tailor the information that I'm presenting so that I'm meeting the needs of the audience. It could be, if you've got a bunch of different topics, you could say, all the people who are interested in X topic, go over here. All the people who are interested in Y topic, go over here. If you're feeling like people need a break and they need to move around and get some more energy going. Or you could, stand up if you're interested in this topic, stay sitting if you're not. There's all different ways we can use a body poll to get people interested in what we're talking about, to lower the filters, create that engagement, and most often get the data that we can use for the rest of our presentation. Okay? Some of the other ways we can lower filters, give people a job. So if we had flip charts here, I could say, Emily, could you take notes on the flip chart for me? Peter, could you note down all the questions that come up during the presentation? Aaron, could you be the timekeeper and tell me when we've got 5 minutes left in the presentation? Those are all ways that we can involve the audience, and when they're involved, as I say, the filters are lowered and they'll remember what's going on. If Peter's noting down all the questions, he's certainly going to be listening to what's happening because he's writing that down. If you're doing a sales call, you could ask them to help with the demonstration. Why don't you come up here and we'll do this together, show you how to do it. You could have them holding props. You could have them assisting with video if that's what you're doing. But think about ways you can involve the audience by giving them a job. We can do 1- and 2-word check-ins. So, if you wanted to say to your audience, let's just do a quick check-in, let's go around the room and give me 1 word, tell me how you're feeling. And so you might get comments like, I'm good, I'm engaged, or I'm tired, I'm sleepy, I'm bored, which hopefully we don't hear. But feedback is your friend. If we know that, we can work on that. That's stuff we can use. So just going around the room and doing that 1- or 2-word check-in is a good way to gauge people's interest level. It lowers their filters because they have to answer the question, so the message gets through. And one good thing about even doing a 1- or 2-word check-in, or as I did, you can assign a small group, like work in pairs or work in a group of 4. So here's another trick. If you've ever been at a presentation and you've got all your papers and you're going through and suddenly you lose your place. It happens. It happens to even the greatest presenters, that you lose your place in your notes. So what are you going to do? You're going to say, just bear with me just a second, I'll be right with you. I'm just going to find my spot here, right? It doesn't look very professional. So what instead you could do is, you think in your mind, I've lost my spot. Okay, let's pair up and we'll talk about how communications can make us all better. Let's just take 2 minutes and think about how communications can make us better, right? And suddenly everybody in the room is doing their little pair work. I can come over here, I can find my spot, in my notes, and hopefully no one is the wiser that I've actually lost my place or my train of thought. So you can give them any topic. It's like, remember is it the church lady from Saturday Night Live? I'll give you a topic, talk amongst yourselves. The Holy Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman. Discuss, right? So whatever your topic is, get them working in pairs. It gives you a break. You can have a sip of water, takes the focus off of you, little pause, find your place. So just another tip. Okay, next one. Give your audience a gift. And I'm not necessarily talking about a pen or a notepad or a coffee mug, something like that. I'm talking about giving them the gift of choice. So if you've got a longer presentation, or even maybe you're doing a full day of training, you can give them a gift by saying, okay, we've got 3 topics to cover this morning. We're going to do the video session, we're going to do the pair work, and then we're going to do the lecture. Which would you like to do first? And everybody, show of hands, body poll, once around the room. Everybody says they want to go with the lecture. You start with the lecture. You're letting them choose the agenda. Or if you're getting close to lunch, we've got 5 more minutes of material now. Would you like to go through the material, or would you like to break and continue with it after lunch? I'm going to do a product demonstration, and then I'm going to show you some slides. Which would you like to do first? These are all ways that we can give the audience a gift of choice. And it helps to make it a bit more of a conversation. They feel like they have a bit more control over what's happening, and it lowers their filters. And demand feedback. I said at the very beginning that I don't just ask for feedback, I demand feedback. All the great leaders do. I remember a story about Tony Robbins, who is a phenomenal motivational speaker, probably gets paid millions of dollars just to show up somewhere. But when he was first starting out at the sales company, and his boss said to him, our expectation is that the junior sales guys do 2 sales calls a month. That was the expectation from his manager. You know how many sales calls he did? He did 2 every day. Every day. And that's how he got better. And every time he said, what can I do to improve? Because if you don't know where you are, and if you don't ask for the feedback, how can you possibly get better? How can you know that you need to maybe work on maybe your voice is too soft, people can't hear you because you're not talking loudly, maybe you need to speak more softly, maybe you're too loud. So if you don't demand that feedback, you can't grow and improve as a presenter. Let people know at the beginning of your presentation that you're going to be asking for the feedback so that they can think about that throughout the presentation. Let them know that that'll be coming. Specify the kind of feedback that you want. If you ask a vague question, you're going to get a vague answer, right? So if I were to say to Emily, what did you think of the presentation? And Emily said, that was good. Yeah, it's good. And I leave thinking, that was good. I did a good job. What can I improve? What can I do with that? If I were instead to say, Emily, tell me about the slides. Did the slides engage you? Did you like the photos that we used? And then hopefully, she gives me some feedback that I can use. Maybe she says, you know what, I really didn't like the slides. I would prefer more information on the slides. So I'm like, okay, that's good to know. That's something I can work with. So if you ask a vague question, you're going to get a vague answer. Ask specific questions for the feedback that you want. Try not to be defensive. It's very hard not to be. I understand that because you're putting yourself out there. Right? But if we truly want to get better, if we truly want to go from here or here or here up to here, then we need that feedback. So always thank them. I appreciate you taking the time to provide me the feedback, and I'm going to look at how I can incorporate that into my next presentation. Try not to be defensive and thank them. You can use body polls during your presentation. You can use a Q&A, the once around the room. Those are all ways that we can engage the audience. And you can also think about who you ask. So maybe you want to do a dry run of your presentation. Maybe you're meeting with a new employer or a new client and you want to ask your colleague, can I run through my presentation with you? Can you give me some feedback on what works and what doesn't work? Try a dry run. How you ask. If you ask, as I said, vaguely, or it's kind of offhand, or we've all been in a presentation where the presentation has ended and people are leaving and the presenter's saying, oh, wait, fill out the comment card, I need your feedback, but you're already out the door. So that's when you ask. You want to give people time to provide thoughtful feedback if you're doing it during your presentation. And as I said, how you respond. Try not to be defensive. Definitely don't argue with them. You know, when Emily said, sorry, I'm picking on Emily, we'll try Dave. haven't said Dave. So when Dave says he doesn't like the slides, it didn't have the information, I'm not going to say, well, you're wrong, I think the slides are great. I'm not going to argue with him. It's his perspective, right? And we can learn from that. Now, not everybody's going to have the same perspective, and when you're dealing with really large groups, you kind of have to go with the majority. But that's also where knowing your audience comes in. And this session today is really just the drop in the bucket of all of these tips and tricks that I've had the benefit of learning throughout my career. So I'm just trying to give you a flavor for how to create an engaging and powerful presentation. So with that in mind, we want to finish with action. We want to close with commitment. If it's a sales call, you're probably not going to get them to write, as you're saying, Wanda, like you're going through all that. They're probably not going to sign the order right on the spot. You're going to have to do some follow-up. But try and think about what's the next step I can get them to take. You know, can you commit to a credit check? Can you commit to a product demonstration? Can you commit to trying a video session? What is the next step that you can logically take them to? Baby steps, but all the time getting towards your final goal. You want them to close with that commitment. And so with that in mind, my call to commitment for all of you is that when I send you the handout and the survey, online survey to provide feedback, I want to know by a show of hands, can I get your commitment to filling out that survey? Raising your hand means yes, keeping your hand down means no. So good. Thank you. That's perfect, because that'll give me some feedback that I can use. Closing with commitment. So there's my contact information, and as I say, if you filled out the attendance sheet, I'll have your emails. I'll email you later this afternoon with a link to the survey and a link to the PDF of the handout, as well as some resources that I really like. There's a company called Own the Room. They have really great videos that you can watch. In terms of presentations and PowerPoint, there's a company called Duarte Design that I think are just fantastic. There's lots of great TED Talks out there, so I have some of those resources for you. So I'm trying to wrap up here so that we have time for questions. I know the session is meant to be, I think, 55 minutes, so you all can get back to work, but I really appreciate your attention and your time today, and I hope you learned something. Thank you. Yes.
How strongly do you feel about having a presentation that's projected versus having other kind of things with you or not at all?
I think it depends on the type of presentation. Like if you're going in to meet with a client and it's just 2 or 3 people, like for you folks with the graphic design, I think it's more powerful to come in and show a variety of your work. Maybe you have an iPad and you can swipe through some, like if it's online work that you want to show them, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary to have a full presentation behind you. In fact, the lady I mentioned, Nancy Duarte from Duarte Design, you know, she says you need to spend 30% of your time preparing, just getting ready, 30% of the time on your presentation, and 30% rehearsing. So if you've rehearsed your presentation and you know your material, you really shouldn't need the PowerPoint. You probably noticed that I'm very deliberate in not having a lot of information on my slides, because I really prefer that we have more of a conversation and we make eye contact and talk to people. But then I like to give a handout, because when somebody puts up a slide like that IT one, that's not a presentation. Where is that? That's a handout, right? So you're not gonna, and I also heard a statement that I think is great. If your presentation can stand, your PowerPoint can stand alone without you, then they don't need you. You can just give them the presentation and they can read it. Mm-hmm. People can read faster than you can talk. So if you have a lot of information on your slides, they're reading it, they're not listening. So I think tailor the type of presentation to the audience and the purpose that you have.
I have a question about asking for feedback. So one, I went on a call for a customer. Is she really at the end of her sales pitch going to ask for feedback then? Or maybe she hunted pairs so she's going to ask her coworker for feedback? Or how do you think that works on a one-on-one like that?
Well, the feedback could be as simple as how do you feel about the offering that we have? Is there something missing from the offering? Is there something else we can provide you? Right? Because then you're getting feedback on what you presented to them and whether or not it was full enough. But if you're wanting feedback about like your voice tone, your slides, your modulation, that's something you can ask your colleagues about. And I do ask that in the survey if people could hear things like that. It has to, like Kim says, it's all about knowing your audience, and there's different kinds of feedback.
You mentioned 30%, 30%, but 30% of what?
The total presentation?
So if you're doing 1 hour of presentation, that is...
No, sorry, this is when you're getting ready for your presentation. So oftentimes people open up their computer and they start working on their slides. You need to spend 30% thinking about what you're going to present, your preparation, 30% working on your slides, and 30% rehearsing.
I'm still missing 30% of what? So if I'm
of your time. So if it takes me, say it takes me 3 hours to prepare for a presentation, an hour of that I want to be getting ready, thinking about it, mind mapping, what's my audience, those questions, what do they know already, what do they want to know. Then I'm going to spend an hour actually doing my slides, and then I'm going to spend an hour rehearsing.
So if you have a 1 hour of presentation, would you say it would need 3 hours of time to prepare?
It depends on what you're presenting. Like if you're presenting, calculus, I'd need 8 months to prepare for that. My son just started grade 9 math, and I'm lost. It's just a general guideline. The point really is that people usually spend all their time working on their slides, and they don't spend any time rehearsing, and they don't spend any time thinking about the questions. They don't spend any time before they start working on the presentation. You need to rehearse it. You need to know your material. When people are reading off their slides, it's because they don't know their material. Does that make sense?
What is the balance in a sales conversation of the me and we versus you and benefit? What's the balance of that conversation as far as we are offering a benefit to you? How much I is involved in that conversation?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure how to answer that.
Okay.
I think that's a case where you got to kind of look at the filters of the person you're talking to. If you kind of see that they're starting to glaze over and they're not necessarily paying attention, then you need to get the focus back on them. I mean, obviously there's a certain amount of information you need to provide, right? The data, all the stuff that goes behind the selling, right? The value offer. So I don't have a cut and dried answer, I'm sorry, but I think if you can read your audience and make the eye contact, and are people nodding or are they nodding off, then you need to focus back on them by saying, Tammy, what did you think of that last office chair? Is that the right chair for your building or not? That's why the practice helps. Yeah. I'm not in sales and communications. Because I'm selling communications. Yeah. Any other questions, comments?
Just to add on to that, I've always found that you can be very confrontational. Don't say to your husband, you didn't pick up the garbage and take notes to reverse it. So I sometimes use a person as a name.
Yes.
But I always struggle with that. I always say you with the hand pointing.
Yes.
So that's a good substitute.
Yeah. And saying that it's how you feel about what happened, right? And a person can't argue with how you feel about it. That's your feeling, that's your perception. So I perceive that the offering it's not the right offering for me. So then you need to work to get the right offering for them. Not you're wrong, that kind of thing. Definitely. Hi.
So Carla, I do a lot of presentations on the web. I don't get to see people's expressions and so on. And I tend to provide more written words on the screen because there has been some research that suggests if people can see it and hear it. What I don't do is send out a copy of the slides or information after. So I'm thinking about what you just said. And if I reduce the amount of content on the slide, I could follow it up with something after. Any thoughts on doing webinars, which are a little different than doing live? I mean,
Yeah.
actually, they're very different.
We do lots of webinars. Manufacturing is a challenging world to be in, and it's always more economical to do a webinar than to go out to India or wherever. So I get that question from our product managers all the time, and we use a product called Live Meeting. I'm not sure what. So do you get the list of participants on the side? So all of those techniques about, not necessarily a body poll, but a once around the room, if you can see their names. So, oh, I see James in Singapore has just joined us. James, what do you think about the information on the slide? So at least you're getting a bit of engagement there. And some of the software is more robust where you can do polling in it. So you can ask those questions. So you just want to break up your material and plan those ahead of time. So every 3 or 4 slides, I'm going to ask a question, or I'm going to do a body poll, or I'm going to do an online poll, and then I'm going to provide all that information afterwards. I'm going to follow up with a brochure or a video or a link, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's definitely challenging. And just checking in and making sure that people can hear you and you're not garbled is really important. I know in the live meeting we have a little thing at the top where people can select a green square, a yellow square, or like a red square. So I'm always telling people, if at any time during the presentation you can't hear, you can't understand, change that square, and as a presenter right away I can see that, Eric in China doesn't understand what I'm saying.
When I was practicing, I actually did a whole webinar with no visuals, it was all audio.
Oh!
So practice is really important.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, knowing
your technology.
Knowing your stuff, and knowing the technology, definitely.
How do you gauge speed of speech? As far as if you're speaking too fast, or if you find that some people are speaking too slow, what's the correct rate of speech?
I don't know that there is a correct rate because it would vary by audience, but that's an excellent opportunity to do a body poll. Like on a scale of 1 to 5, if you think I'm speaking too fast, that's a 5. If I'm speaking too slow, that's a 1. And you can go with the majority. If everybody's a 3 or 4, you think, okay, then we're just right. So get that feedback, and it's also a chance to lower their filters. You can do that in a big group. If it's just one person, you can say, like when you guys are going through your brochures and you're, just let me know if I'm going through this too fast, right? Just quick check-in, because it's about them, not about you. Okay, I think I have 1 o'clock on my, I'm happy to take questions, but I don't want people to miss whatever their next event is. Did everyone fill out the sign-in sheet? Everyone okay with giving me their